The servant from the stars. The corridors of the human embassy on Vareth Prime gleamed like silver rivers under the twin suns. Captain Elias Trent had been assigned here after the Orion conflict, to serve as a diplomatic liaison between Earth and the Varethian Empire. He expected protocol, dull speeches, and polite politics. What he didn't expect was her. Her name was Lyra, a Varethian attendant assigned to him the moment he arrived. Her eyes shimmered like liquid sapphire, her movements calm and silent. Her skin held a faint golden hue that caught every glint of light. She spoke little, always addressing him with perfect respect, always lowering her head when she passed. Elias noticed something strange about her from the first day. Not just her beauty, though it was impossible to ignore, but the quiet sadness that surrounded her. When she served tea, her hands trembled slightly. When she stood by the window, her gaze drifted to the horizon like she longed for freedom. One evening, after yet another dull council meeting, Elias returned to his quarters. Lyra was there, silently cleaning the table as the stars shimmered beyond the glass wall. He sighed and said lightly, "You don't have to work so late, Lyra. You're too beautiful for chores." For a second, everything froze. Her hand stopped moving. The silver cup slipped from her grip and clattered softly. Her breathing quickened. Her glowing eyes widened in something between fear and disbelief. "Captain, please don't say such things," she whispered, her voice trembling. He frowned, confused. "Did I offend you?" She shook her head but didn't meet his gaze. "You could be executed for saying that." The air went cold. Elias blinked. "Executed? For a compliment?" She looked up then, tears glinting in her eyes. "Among my people, beauty is property, not pride." Her voice was barely audible. "To call a servant beautiful is to challenge the house that owns her." He stared at her in shock, the weight of her words hitting like a meteor. In that moment, Elias understood the horror behind her gentle silence. She wasn't just serving him, she was enslaved, and his simple words had just lit a spark that could ignite an empire. Outside the window, the twin suns of Vareth Prime dipped below the horizon. Their fading light cast long shadows across the metallic floor. Lyra stood there, trembling, her reflection merging with the starlight. Elias took a slow breath and said softly, "Then maybe it's time someone broke their rules." The words hung in the air like a forbidden song. Neither of them knew that those words would echo far beyond that room, that they would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the star. The forbidden words spread the next morning. The Varethian palace corridors buzzed with whispers. News traveled fast in this world of crystal halls and silver tongues. A human had spoken forbidden words to a servant. The House of Lords wanted names. The council demanded proof, and Lyra, the golden-eyed attendant, stood in the center of it all, silent and terrified. Elias Trent had no idea that his late-night words had already become scandalous fire. He was preparing for another diplomatic meeting when his communicator blinked red. "Captain Trent," came a cold voice from the console. "The Varethian High Chamber requests your presence," he frowned. "Request or summon?" The voice paused. "Summon, sir." When Elias arrived, he found the chamber bathed in blue light. Dozens of alien nobles sat in high glass thrones, their elongated faces unreadable. At the center stood Lyra, her head bowed, wrists bound with silver threads that shimmered painfully. The sight twisted something in Elias's chest. The First Lord spoke, his voice sharp like broken glass. "Captain Trent, you spoke treasonous affection to a servant of the Empire." Elias clenched his jaw. "I offered kindness, not treason." A hiss rippled through the crowd. Kindness was not a word the Varethians used for humans. The First Lord leaned forward, his eyes glowing faintly. "Do you deny calling the servant beautiful?" Elias hesitated, then said calmly, "I said what was true." Gasps filled the hall. Lyra's eyes darted to him in panic, but he only nodded slightly, a silent promise that he would not betray her. "Do you understand," the Lord thundered, "that such words declare ownership, that they challenge the honor of her house?" Elias took a deep breath. "Then your honor is fragile." The hall went silent, even the guards froze. No one had ever spoken to the Varethian lords like that, not even their own soldiers. The Lord's voice trembled with rage. "You dare insult our customs?" Elias replied, steady as a warship. "Your customs enslave the innocent. That's not honor. That's fear dressed as law." Lyra's lips parted, disbelief flashing in her eyes. No one had ever defended her before. In that moment, the energy inside the chamber shifted. The other servants standing in the shadows whispered softly among themselves. A ripple of quiet courage began to move like a wave. The lords ordered Elias confined to his quarters. Lyra was sent back to her house, a gilded cage filled with silence and sorrow. But that night, as the twin moons rose, she looked out from her chamber window and saw something strange. Hovering above the city was a faint human signal flare. 3 pulses of light from the embassy roof, a secret code known only to Earth soldiers. 3 flashes meant hope. Tears welled in her golden eyes. She pressed her hand to the cold glass and whispered, "You fool. You're going to get yourself killed," but deep inside, something fierce awoke. Something she thought long dead. For the first time, Lyra dared to dream of freedom. Beyond the walls of Vareth Prime, human comms buzzed with encrypted chatter. Captain Elias had contacted someone who didn't wear a diplomat's uniform, someone from his old unit, the Ghost Legion, and when they answered, their leader's voice came through the static. "Trent, you're really calling us for a maid." Elias looked toward the glowing city outside his window and whispered, "She's not a maid, she's a prisoner in plain sight. And I'm done pretending otherwise." The voice on the other end laughed softly. "Then tell me where to land." In the skies above Vareth Prime. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. The Ghost Legion was coming, and soon, every chain in the Empire would be tested as themselves. The humans' rebellion begins. The night on Vareth Prime was silent. Too silent for a living world. The twin moons cast pale light over the Silver City, and shadows moved where no wind blew. Lyra sat near her window, her heart pounding with each passing second. She couldn't stop thinking about the human who had spoken forbidden words, and faced death for her without fear. Far above, in the void just beyond the planet's shield, a black ship waited. It bore no insignia, no beacon, no sound. It was the Phantom Dawn, the flagship of the Ghost Legion, humans who fought wars the galaxy pretended didn't exist. Men and women trained to appear, strike, and vanish like whispers in the dark. Inside the command deck, Captain Elias Trent stood in front of the holographic map. Beside him, a grizzled officer named Cole adjusted his gauntlet. "You sure about this, Elias?" Elias nodded slowly. "She's not just a servant. Cole, she's proof that the Varethian Empire hides slavery behind elegance," Cole smirked. "You've gone soft, Captain." Elias turned, his eyes cold. "Maybe, but I'd rather be soft than silent." The plan was simple but dangerous. The Ghost Legion would infiltrate the capital, extract Lyra, and expose the Empire's hidden truth. No one would expect humans to strike during a peace mission. That's what made it perfect on the planet's surface. Lyra's golden cuffs glowed faintly, a symbol of her binding oath. She traced them with her fingers, whispering softly, "Elias, you shouldn't have come back." But even as she said it, a light blinked across her window. 1, 2, 3. Her heart leapt, the signal. A shadow detached itself from the sky, silent as a breath. A small shuttle touched down on the marble terrace below her window. The hatch opened and a man stepped out, his armor gleaming black against the moonlight. "Elias," she gasped. "You'll be executed if they catch you." He smiled slightly. "Then I'll make sure they don't." He lifted a small device, slicing through the golden cuffs with a sharp flash. For the first time in her life, her wrists were free. Lyra touched the skin where the bands had been. Eyes wide with disbelief, then alarms screamed through the palace. Guards flooded the corridors, weapons drawn. Elias grabbed her hand. "Move!" They ran through narrow halls, light bursting behind them as plasma bolts scorched the walls. Outside, the Ghost Legion was already in motion. Explosions rippled across the outer gates. Drones fell from the sky like dying stars. Cole's voice came through the comms. "Extraction in 2 minutes, Captain." "Make it quick." Lyra stumbled as a beam grazed her shoulder. Elias caught her, pulling her close. "Stay with me." She looked up at him, pain in her eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why risk your life for me?" He paused, the chaos echoing around them. "Because someone once told me that humans were monsters," he said softly, "and I decided to prove them wrong." They burst through the final door to the terrace, the shuttle hovering just beyond reach. But standing between them and freedom was the First Lord himself. His armor glowed white, his eyes burning with fury. "You dared defy the Empire for a slave?" He roared. Elias raised his weapon, his voice calm. "For a person, yes," the Lord charged, plasma blade igniting. Their weapons clashed in a burst of light, sparks flying into the night. Behind them, Lyra looked to the sky and saw the Ghost Legion ships emerging from the shadows, black streaks against the stars. Her heart raced as she whispered, "The humans came, for me." The duel ended in a flash, the Lord falling to his knees, his weapon clattering away. Elias reached for Lyra's hand, pulling her toward the shuttle as it lowered closer. The guards shouted from behind, but it was too late. The shuttle soared upward, fire reflecting in Lyra's golden eyes. As Vareth Prime shrank below them, Elias looked out the viewport. Breathing hard, Lyra whispered, "You just started a war." Elias shook his head slowly, watching the stars. "No, Lyra, I just ended a silence far away." The galactic beacons began to light one by one. Every house, every empire, every hidden power would soon hear of what happened that night. A human freed an alien servant, and the stars themselves trembled. The Empire strikes back. The black shuttle cut through the upper atmosphere like a blade of light. Behind it, the planet Vareth Prime glowed with fire and chaos. From orbit, the explosions looked small, but Elias knew better. He had just shattered centuries of control with one act of defiance. Lyra sat beside him, clutching the edge of the seat as the ship trembled. Her wrists were raw where the golden cuffs had once burned. She kept staring at them. Unable to believe they were gone, Elias glanced at her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. But his voice carried doubt because deep inside, he knew safety was just a word, not a reality. Cole's voice came through the comms, rough and tense. "Captain, we've got incoming." Elias turned to the viewport. Out of the black void emerged silver spears. Varethian interceptors, sleek, deadly, and fast. "Guess the Empire didn't take kindly to your little rescue," Cole growled. Elias gritted his teeth. "Hold formation. Fire only if they strike first." The enemy ships moved closer. Through the static, a cold voice echoed on all frequencies. "Human vessel, you have violated Varethian sovereignty. Surrender the property known as Lyra of House Sale." Lyra flinched at the words. Elias's eyes darkened. "She's not property anymore." The human ship accelerated, breaking formation, diving into the shadow of a nearby moon. Blinding light filled the cabin as plasma fire streaked past. Cole cursed. "They're not waiting for diplomacy." Elias shouted, "Evasive pattern Delta." The phantom dawn spun downward. Weaving between asteroid fragments, Lyra gripped the armrest, fear and adrenaline mixing in her veins. This was her first time in battle, her first taste of what freedom truly cost. Minutes later, silence returned. The radar cleared, the pursuers gone. The Ghost Legion's stealth systems had saved them again. But victory was short-lived because across the galaxy, the Empire's message had already spread. The official transmission played on every frequency. By decree of the Varethian High Council, all humans are now considered enemies of the Empire. Their colonies, vessels, and ambassadors will be detained until further notice. The words echoed like thunder. Cole slammed his fist against the console. "They've just declared war." Lyra stared in shock. No, I didn't want this. I never wanted anyone to die because of me." Elias turned toward her, his eyes softer now. "You didn't cause this, Lyra. You revealed what they are?" She shook her head, tears streaking down her golden skin. "You don't understand how Sale will come for me. They don't lose what they own." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "Then they'll learn what happens when they try to own a human's heart." For the first time, she smiled faintly through her fear. There was something unshakable in his words, something the Empire would never understand. Moments later, Cole shouted, "Captain, incoming transmission." From Earth High Command, the screen flickered, showing the emblem of the United Human Directorate. "Captain Trent," said the Admiral, her voice grave, "you've started something we can't ignore. The Varethians have cut all treaties. They're mobilizing fleets. We can't leave you out there alone." Elias straightened. "We'll handle it, Admiral. But the galaxy needs to see the truth. Send the footage." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" Elias nodded. "Let them see her. Let them see what the Empire calls a servant." Within hours, every major communication channel across the known galaxy received the broadcast. A short clip. A trembling alien woman with golden eyes and broken cuffs. A human voice saying, "No one deserves chains." And the symbol of Earth behind it. Across hundreds of worlds, people, human and alien alike, paused to watch. Whispers turned into questions. questions into anger, anger into movement. And deep within the golden halls of the Empire, the First Lord rose from his throne, his wounds still fresh, his pride shattered. "Summon the Black Guard," he hissed. "If the humans want war, we'll give them one." Far away aboard the Phantom Dawn, Elias stood beside Lyra, both staring into the vastness of the stars. He said quietly, "They'll come for us." Lyra nodded, her voice firm now. "Then let them come." In that moment, the human and the alien were no longer master and servant. They were the spark and the flame, and the galaxy was about to burn with the light of their defiance. The price of freedom, the Phantom Dawn drifted through the dark between stars. The crew worked in silence, haunted by the war they had accidentally begun outside the viewport. The debris of the Varethian blockade floated like frozen ghosts. Inside, the tension was heavier than gravity itself. Lyra sat in the med bay, the hum of machines echoing softly around her. Her wounds had healed, but her eyes carried a different kind of pain. Elias stood at the doorway watching her quietly. He wanted to say something comforting, but words felt too small. She spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard the transmission," she said. "The whole galaxy knows now." Elias nodded slowly. "They needed to see what the Empire hides." Lyra looked down at her hands, trembling. "And now millions will die." Elias stepped closer. "Or millions will finally live free." She turned her gaze toward him, eyes shimmering like molten gold. "You don't understand, Elias. I'm not just any servant. I'm the last heir of House Sale." The air between them went still. Elias frowned. "Heir? You mean—" "Yes," she said softly. "I was born to rule them, but my mother refused the throne. She believed in equality, in peace. So they erased her name and chained me instead." Elias felt his chest tighten. All this time, the woman he'd rescued wasn't just a prisoner. She was the rightful ruler of the Varethian Empire, a living threat to the lords who enslaved their own kind. Cole burst into the room, his voice sharp. "Captain, we've got a situation." Elias turned. "What is it?" Cole tossed a data pad onto the table. The hologram flickered. A massive Varethian fleet forming near the Edge Nebula. "They're building a supercarrier, Captain. Bigger than anything we've seen. It's powered by a quantum core." Elias narrowed his eyes. "A weapon of control." Lyra rose to her feet. "No, a weapon of extinction. That's the Crown engine. It can bend gravity and burn entire systems." The crew exchanged glances. Cole muttered. "So they plan to wipe out human worlds before this rebellion spreads." Elias took a deep breath. His decision already made. "Then we stop them." Lyra shook her head. "You can't fight an entire empire with one ship." Elias smiled faintly. "Watch me." Hours later, the Phantom Dawn entered stealth mode, gliding through ion storms toward the Edge Nebula. The crew prepared for battle. Silent but ready, Elias stood at the helm, and Lyra joined him. Her golden hair shimmered in the dim blue light. "I can disable the core," she said. "It needs a royal code to stabilize." "I still have that access." Elias looked at her, concern in his eyes. "That means going aboard?" She nodded. "I know. The plan was madness. One human warship, one alien princess against the heart of the Empire. But madness was something humans had turned into legend. As they approached the massive Varethian carrier, the view filled with metal and light, a structure the size of a moon. It pulsed with a cold, violet glow, Lyra whispered. "That's it." "The Crown engine." Elias activated the comms. "Cole, prep the boarding pods. We're going in." The Phantom Dawn dropped out of warp, shields flaring as alarms exploded across the enemy fleet. Plasma fire filled the void. The Ghost Legion fought like fury itself. Every shot, every maneuver told the story of defiance, but for Elias and Lyra, this mission wasn't about victory, and it was about truth. Their pods slammed into the carrier's outer hull. Cutting through layers of alloy, they moved fast, hearts pounding. Lyra led the way through silver corridors glowing with Varethian script. Memories flickered in her mind. Her childhood, her mother's voice. The songs of peace that were banned. She stopped suddenly, her voice trembling. "Elias, if we fail, promise me something." He looked at her. "Anything. Tell them I was more than their servant." She said softly, "Tell them I was free." He placed a hand on her cheek, his voice steady. "You'll tell them yourself." They reached the core chamber, a massive sphere of energy suspended in air. It pulsed like a living heart. Lyra approached the console and entered her royal code, her fingers shaking. The lights flickered, alarms blared. The voice of the First Lord echoed from the intercom, cold and furious. Lyra Sale, daughter of a traitor, you dare defy your house. She lifted her chin, tears falling freely now. I dare to be what you were too afraid to be, free. The chamber began to quake, the core destabilizing under her command. Elias pulled her back. It's going critical. She looked at him, her voice calm. Then let it burn. The light consumed the chamber. Outside, the phantom dawn veered away from the exploding carrier as the crown engine imploded into pure energy. The entire Varethian fleet was thrown into chaos, torn apart by its own creation. On the bridge, Cole shouted, Captain, they're retreating. We did it. Elias stood breathless, staring at the glowing wreckage through the viewport, but Lyra collapsed beside him, the energy backlash having drained her life force. He caught her in his arms, his voice breaking. Stay with me. Lyra, she smiled faintly, whispering, I'm free, Elias. That's all I ever wanted. Her eyes fluttered closed, her body glowing with faint golden light, the last trace of the royal bloodline fading into the stars. Elias held her close as the ship drifted silently among the ruins of a dying empire. Around him the stars burned brighter than ever. Because freedom, real freedom, always demanded a price. The human who challenged the gods in the aftermath of the crown engine's destruction. The galaxy stood still for the first time in centuries. The Varethian Empire was silent. Its fleets scattered, its communication relays dark, its capital burned by its own arrogance. The story of a single human who defied the Lord spread faster than light itself. Elias Trent became a ghost of rumor and legend. Some said he was dead. Others whispered that he commanded a fleet hidden beyond the black edge of space. But all agreed on one thing. He had done the impossible. He had made the gods bleed. The Ghost Legion hid among debris fields and dead moons, rebuilding. Cole sat at the helm, staring at a cracked screen that still displayed the image of Lyra. Her golden eyes frozen in memory, he whispered. You'd have liked what we've started. Elias entered quietly, his face older, harder, but his voice steady. We're not done yet. Across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. On slave worlds, workers refused to bow. On merchant stations, alien captains painted the human flag on their hulls. And in the dark halls of the dying empire, whispers grew louder. Lyra Sale lives. Elias knew they were wrong, but he let the rumor spread, because a legend was more powerful than a weapon. And if the galaxy needed a ghost to follow, he would become that ghost. Then came the message. An encrypted signal from deep space, coordinates hidden beneath an ancient frequency only royal blood could send. Cole frowned. No way, she's gone. We saw her die. Elias stared at the code for a long moment, then whispered, Not if the crown engine did more than we thought. The signal led them to the silent verge, a system where stars collapsed in endless twilight. There, surrounded by fragments of dying suns, they found a structure, massive, circular, pulsing with faint gold light. Lyra's voice echoed through the ship's speakers, soft but alive. Elias, if you hear this, I have become part of the crown engine. I am energy now, thought without form. Elias froze, every word cutting through him. I did not die. I became what they feared. The voice of the free, her message continued. Protect them, Elias, protect the weak. Tell them I'm watching. Cole looked at the captain. Speechless, Elias's hands trembled as he touched the screen. She's still here. Outside, the structure pulsed brighter, spreading a wave of golden light through the void. Every ship, every satellite, every heart that still hoped for freedom felt it, and across the stars, millions of beings looked up, whispering her name, Lyra. The Varethian remnants panicked. Their systems flickered, their engines failed. Their ships lost navigation. The crown engine's core, now part of her, was rewriting the rules of their technology. Their gods were falling, and the galaxy was no longer theirs. Elias stood on the bridge, watching the golden storm ripple through space. He whispered, You've become their light, Cole asked. What now, Captain? Elias turned, his eyes burning with purpose. Now we make sure no one ever builds chains again. The phantom dawn powered forward, disappearing into the nebula. Behind it, the new dawn began, not of empires, not of thrones, but of voices that refused to be silenced. And somewhere in the endless stars, a whisper echoed, soft, eternal, proud. The human told her she was too beautiful to serve, and she showed the galaxy what beauty really means. The dawn of two worlds. The galaxy no longer slept. For centuries it had obeyed the lords, lived under laws written in fear. But now their fleets were dust, their temples hollow, their gods silent, and in that silence a new voice rose, the voice of the free. From the ruins of the crown engine, a signal pulsed through every relay. Not a command, not a warning, but a melody, a soft, steady tone carrying a single message: hope. It was Lyra's song, reborn as light. Traveling faster than any fleet ever could, on the bridge of the phantom dawn, Captain Elias Trent watched that golden wave spread across the void. Each world it touched began to glow faintly, as if the stars themselves remembered her. Cole approached quietly. "It's reaching the outer colonies, sir," Elias nodded. "Let it reach every heart." Soon ships began to arrive, and not soldiers, but civilians, human engineers, alien scholars, even former slaves who had stolen the very vessels that once caged them. They gathered in orbit around a quiet blue moon near the verge. There Elias landed the Phantom Dawn for the last time. In the dusty plains of that moon, he built a camp that would grow into a city, a place where no one owned another. They called it New Haven, the first world of both humans and Varethians together. Its flag was not of metal or empire. It was light, golden and white, the color of her eyes. Days became weeks and weeks became seasons. The refugees turned settlers. The soldiers turned teachers every night. They looked to the sky and saw that same golden shimmer, a reminder that freedom had a cost. But it was worth paying. Elias grew older, his hair silver like the moonlight on the plains, but his eyes still carried that fire. He spent his last years recording their story, not as a war, but as a beginning. He spoke softly into the recorder. Once there was a servant who was too beautiful for chains. A man told her so, and the stars listened. When he finished his final words, he walked outside. The air was calm, the horizon glowing with dawn. Above him, the constellations shifted, forming patterns of gold, the same energy that once flowed through her. He smiled, whispering, "You kept your promise, Lyra." A warm breeze moved through the camp. Lights flickered softly. Children pointed at the sky. "Look, the Lady of Light," they cried. And in the heavens, the glow brightened for a moment, as if the galaxy itself smiled back. Centuries later, legends would call that moment the dawn of two worlds. The day humanity and the Varethians stopped being enemies and became builders of a shared tomorrow. Their monuments would carry two names side by side, Elias Trent and Lyra Sale, the soldier who challenged the gods, and the servant who became the soul of the stars. Because in the end, every world remembered their story. The human who saw beauty where others saw ownership, and the alien who turned that single kindness into a revolution, a whisper that still travels through the galaxies. Eternal and bright, no one was born to serve. Everyone was born to shine.